And that excitement down there looks like the outside of Abbey Curve, and it's real excitement because it's no less a driver than Jeff Lees in the much-fancied Ralt V6 Honda, who's obviously spun off. He's being pushed back. Oh, meantime, everybody else is lined up ready for the start, so is he going to get there in time? In the front rank, in pole position, number 15, the 19-year-old New Zealand driver, Mike Thackwell, who, in his Ralt V6 Honda engined car, has unofficially broken Brian Henton's lap record from last year. Alongside him, another 19-year-old, Corrado Fabi, who is driving one of the official Works March cars. Row 2, number 4, the reigning Formula 3 champion of Europe, Thierry Boutsen from Belgium, who is driving a March. Then, number 16, Elia, back into Formula 2 after having broken his arm last year in a German Maurer car. The third row is Jeff Lees, who's just got onto it in time, having spun off on the warm-up lap in practice here this morning. And alongside him, Roberto Guerrero, the Colombian driver in a Maurer. Then Richard Dallest in the French AGS car, alongside Stefan Johansson, the reigning British Formula 3 champion, who is in a Toleman. The next row, the last on your screen, the wealthy Italian Riccardo Paletti, alongside Britain's Jim Crawford in a Toleman. And the race is wide open.
Just looking at the grid, it's going to be very interesting because I think in these conditions, Richard Dallest in the GPA number 8 T car is certainly going to rock it through. But the big problem will be is the softness of his tyres. This car is tremendously quick in the wet. I think it's plainly almost suicidal for the Hondas to try and start on slick tyres at this stage in the thing, and I think it's going to be very interesting in the first corner. I think we're going to have one or two incidents.
Looking back at this race, it's very interesting for F1 and F2 cars because I see some great names there like Sterling Marson, Jackie Stewart, Graham Hill, and I noticed that James has won it twice, so I wonder what he's got to say about it.
Well, pretty difficult conditions here at Silverstone. It's been raining all morning, it's heavy cloud, very damp atmosphere. We've got a damp track at the moment. I haven't been round myself. I don't know what the puddle situation. It doesn't look like there are many puddles. It's an interesting surface because it's quite grippy even when it's damp. And I think that although it seems sensible to start on wet tyres, if it dries, of course, anybody who can start on dry tyres, they can get a fair bit of grip. They may be able to get away with it.
And there is Stefan Johansson's car being pushed away with the rest of them on the warm-up lap. Now, Johansson, the Swedish driver who is in one of the semi-official Toleman Works cars, was well up, 8th fastest in practice, and that's Jim Crawford still in the pits.
I gather, Murray, that all the cars, apart from one car down towards the back end of the grid, are on wet tyres. They've all gone for wets. But of course, they may dry the track as they go, and that could make for a very exciting race if we have everybody having to come in and get a bit of pit work involved to get onto dry tyres.
Two things to say, and for everybody to take note of. The first is that the Hondas, the Ralt Hondas, are very marginal on fuel. There's a grave danger that they may run out because their fuel consumption is so heavy. The second thing is that the Pirelli tyres that a lot of these cars are driving on are a bit marginal in the wet too, so it's going to be a very, very interesting and exciting race altogether.
Yeah, it's a very abrasive surface, and the soft rubber on the wet tyres, of course, wears much faster here than most spaces.
Red lights are on, the greens are going in a second, and then the 47-lap race is on now, and it's Thackwell getting a lovely start with Corrado Fabi tucking in behind him. Mike Thackwell, the young New Zealand driver, takes the first corner on the course, cops the right-hander, and I can tell you that it is not raining. There is the Jaguar fire tender coming up behind. It follows the cars round on the first lap until they've done it safely and then pulls off the course. And meantime, it is Mike Thackwell coming up to the right-hander at Beckett's. You can see the rest of the field streaming out behind him. Formula 2 cars these are, 2 litres, and that is 300 horsepower, and they're coming now to the fastest part of the course, the drive down from Chapel down the Hanger Straight into Stowe Corner, and it's Mike Thackwell. Watch for him because the New Zealand driver has yet to score a Formula 2 victory, and there's Jeff Lees leading that bunch in the Ralt-Honda But there is the second of the cars, and Thackwell was in a class of his own in practice. As I said earlier on, he went round in practice at 1 minute 18.6 seconds, and that looks very much as Thackwell comes up towards Abbey Curve to go through and complete lap 1. Mike Thackwell, number 15, who comes from Auckland in New Zealand, is going to come under the bridge now into our sights to cross the line to complete lap 1 out of 77 into the chicane. Very slippery indeed, this chicane. And it is Guerrero in second place, followed by Alboreto, followed by Thierry, Boutsen, and well up is Jeff Lees. So it's the brilliant young Colombian. There is Richard D'Alest going through ahead of Thierry, Boutsen, and as James Hunt and as Brian Hinton predicted, the AGS car of Richard D'Alest, and watch for him, that's number 10, is going very, number 8 D'Alest is going very well indeed with Thackwell there on his second lap. Long way to go now. Brian Hinton, you've had a lot of experience of this. What would you be doing at this stage of the race if you had this lead?
Well, now I know that these Pirelli tyres are going to suit these conditions ideally, because the track now is drying quite quickly and they're slightly harder than the opposition. So I would expect to see Dallas move up into an attacking position very early, and the Pirelli cars probably come through later on. But I'm sure we're going to have some pit stops if the weather stays like this.
And there's a real race going on that you're looking at now, and this is the race for second place as Thackwell comes round the left-hander at Maggots and comes down to Beckett's. The battle for second place is really warming up. 17 Guerrero, the Colombian in his first Formula 2 race. Just behind him, Michele Alboreto in the Minardi car. And just behind Alboreto, as you can see for yourselves, tucked up right behind his wing is Richard D'Alest. So there are 4 different makes of car, and D'Alest is going through. Look at that, up into third, and he challenged for second, but the door was shut in his face by the very experienced in terms of kart driving and Formula 3 driving, Roberto Guerrero, but very new to Formula 2. Terrific scrap now, and they're closing up on Thackwell.
Yes, Murray, I've just noticed that Aya Elia, if I pronounce that right, and please don't write if I haven't, because I'll learn later, he's changed onto dry tyres and is in fact lapping quite quickly, which is significant. And if the team managers in the pits are doing the job right, they'll be taking times on him, and therefore if they can find that he's lapping as quickly on slicks as he could on wets, they should be calling their drivers in pretty soon, because although it's heavy, it doesn't look as if it's actually going to rain again yet.
And look at that, that's D'Alest. D'Alest through into the lead. He took the second place from Guerrero, and Richard D'Alest, one of the most experienced Formula 2 drivers in this race, looks as though he's going to clear off now. He won 2 Formula 2 races last year. D'Alest won at Pau and he won at Zandvoort. And now on lap 5, out of 77, he's into the lead. And there is Kenny Atchison, the young Irish driver, into the pits. That's the race leader, the second of those 2 cars. There he is, Richard D'Alest, the Frenchman, who comes from Marseille, who has been motor racing for some 8 years in Formula Renault, Formula 2, and was a man who did very well. And look at Lienhart. He's challenging for the lead, and we have a new race leader. Jörg Lienhart, the totally unexpected man, has gone into the lead ahead of Richard D'Alest in the 9th lap, 9 laps completed. James.
Well, this is an amazing performance by Lienhart. He's come from absolutely nowhere. He's had no past record, and he's also driving extremely intelligently, because he's moving over onto the wet patches and cooling his tyres down, because the track's now getting reasonably dry on the line, very abrasive on the tyres. But I think, quite frankly, that the leaders really should be thinking about changing into the pits, getting into the pits and changing tyres as soon as possible, because the track does seem to be drying out.
And Mike Thackwell has just done exactly that, and you are looking at him now. Mike Thackwell, who was in 9th position, the man who had led the race for the first 5 laps, has gone into the pits.
Yeah, well, that's very good tactics by Mike Thackwell, because he was obviously going backwards in the conditions, and you know, when you're going backwards, you've got to do something different, and the right thing different to do was to get in the pits and get some different tyres on.
Into lap 15 14 laps completed. Number 24, the race leader, Jörg Lienhardt, ahead of, and a long way ahead of, the European Formula 3 champion of 1980, Michele Alboreto. Lienhardt in a March, Alboreto in a Minardi. Then in third position, the wealthy Italian Riccardo Paletti. But a notable fourth position, and this is a great achievement, it's number 31, Kim Mather, the British driver in the A-Cliff March, the man who comes from Haydock, and he runs his whole operation on a shoestring. And behind Mather, in fifth position, it's another British driver. It's Ray Mallock in the Ralt-Ford, and in sixth position, completing the leaderboard, yet another British driver, Jim Crawford in the Toleman-Hart. Well, the man who is leading the race on slicks, the dry tyres as it were, is Riccardo Paletti, the Italian, who is in 10th position. You just saw him come into the pits. I remarked on the fact that he would be changing his wet tyres for dry tyres, and that looks suspiciously like him to me. It is. That's Paletti. Now, this is interesting. There's Paletti on slicks. Now, watch this. Paletti on slicks, and the leader, the race leader, is the red car, still on wet tyres, so we will be able to get a comparison here. Paletti is in 10th position, and number 24, Lienhardt, goes through and passes him. So you saw the way that Paletti's car snaked under acceleration as he came out of the chicane at Woodcote. So the conditions are obviously still more suitable for wet tyres than for slick tyres.
Yes,
and there, now look at this. This is the second place man. This is Michele Alboreto in the Minardi-BMW, the Italian in the Italian car, in second place, and he will have lost that second place. The race is all of a sudden really coming alive as the men who are on wets give up, come in, change to slick tyres, and meantime the men who are now on slick tyres, having changed from wets, will start up to move through the race. So the dry race is moving up to challenge the wet race.
As I said earlier, Murray, these conditions do certainly suit the Pirelli wet tyres, but I think it was noticeable that Alboreto came into the pits at this stage because he is the leading wet Pirelli runner at the moment, and it may be now it is getting even too much for them. So
and as you can see, he is perfectly all right, but the motor car is very obviously anything but. I think because Alboreto walking around the car will be anxious to start again, but there's no way he's going to be able to.
Yeah, it doesn't look too badly damaged, but anyway, he's got out for one reason or another. I think what's happening, Murray, is some of these guys are not very experienced because they're going off the road. He's not the first person we've seen to go off the road on his very first snap out on dries. Now, an experienced driver, no matter what the conditions, would always start off with the dry tyres are cold, and they have a lot less grip when they're cold rather than when they've got warmed up, not particularly on a slippery track. Oh, he's got back in again now.
And it looks as though Alboreto has decided his car is all right.
He's obviously carried out a 10,000-mile service and decided it's all right. But it's unintelligent driving to change tyres and then to go out and go fast immediately.
As we look at Jörg Lienhardt, the race leader, who is on his 20th lap, the order is... And Lienhardt off! Lienhardt off, rejoins the circuit, overdid it a bit. There's a car touring down the Hangar Straight. It certainly is a race of excitement. Lienhardt off as he came into the Hangar Straight, round Chapel Curve. But, and this is an advantage, of course, of cars not having these skirts nowadays, because almost certainly if Lienhardt had gone off with skirts on the car, as they used to have in Formula 1, he would have damaged them and he would have had a very part-worn motor car. But having ground clearance all the time, as he does now, he was able to take to the rough, do a bit of rally cross, rejoin the circuit, completely unharmed. This is Kim Mather. Mather into the pits, in second place. His laps of glory have been run. He will now, of course, lose a lot of time while he's changing from wet tyres to dry.
Every time that I seem to make a prediction, I usually get it wrong, but it looks like Thackwell's moving up in very, very quickly. In fact, I've got the watch on him now, and I'll just see what sort of times he's doing.
Now, I know as Aya Elia, number 16, goes into the pits, presumably to change tyres. It must be very confusing for those of you who are watching at home, because unlike us, you cannot see the whole field. But you will shortly, I suspect, see things start to change, because people are closing up inexorably all the time on number 24, the race leader, with over half the race completed. 47-lap race, and the race leader, Lola-Hart, that we're looking at now, is on lap 28, and in second place, the Englishman, Ray Mallock.
Well, the only reason I don't know how they pay people in Formula 2, but in Grand Prix racing, you get payments at quarter distance, half distance, and three-quarter distance, as well as the finish. And the only reason I can think that we'll keep a driver out there now, if he knows what he's doing, is he's waiting for half-distance money. But if this guy, Lola-Hart, is as rich as everybody says, I would have thought he'd be more interested in winning the race. In which case, he's being very stupid not to get in the pits and put some dry tyres on and get on with it.
I'd just like to put James right on that point. I don't think anybody gets paid in Formula 2, or that's what they always tell me anyway.
Well, in Grand Prix racing, we all count the laps, and we all know which lap is pay lap.
I'm going to learn that, James.
Oh yeah, you've got to learn that. You've got to know when to get paid.
Lola-Hart is over the half-lap race distance, of course, because 23 and a half laps was the half race distance, and he's now on his 29th lap. And I've got the stopwatch running to see when Ray Mallock comes through, and here he is going through the... Ray Mallock in second position is on his way to Copse Corner now. The second place man then, Ray Mallock at Copse Corner. There we see Ray Mallock in the Chamtex Ralt. Ray, who has had a lot of racing experience. He is the son of the famous Arthur Mallock. That's number 36, Ray Mallock. The son of Arthur Mallock, who has built literally hundreds of U2 Clubman's racing cars, and Ray Mallock has worked for his father and has come up by way of winning one of the prestigious Grovewood Awards into Formula 3. He was second in the Formula Atlantic Championship as long ago as 1972, as we look at the leader. Now, Lola-Hart is a full minute, as makes no difference, ahead of Ray Mallock, and that in a 1 minute 20 seconds lap, which is roughly what they're doing now, is well over two-thirds of a lap, of course. Now, at Copse Corner, there is something dramatic happening. That's it, we just caught it. That's Mike Thackwell moving up into second position, and Brian Hinton's prophecy is coming true, because Mike Thackwell, number 15 in the V6 Honda engine Ralt car, Ron Toranak's car, has caught and passed Ray Mallock in the Formula 2 car. Now, here is the man, Mike Thackwell, who led from laps 1 to 6 inclusive before losing the lead to Richard Dallest, who you will remember took over that lead for a couple of laps before disappearing from the race. The race leader, Lola-Hart, chased by Mike Thackwell in second position. In third place, also on dry tyres, like Thackwell, is Riccardo Paletti. And now let's watch Lola-Hart, because
he's determined to stay out. He's stayed out another lap, Murray. He hasn't come in. I don't know what
there we are. And while I talk to you, we're trying to get an official reading from the official lap scorers on the positions, because it's very, very critical indeed.
I'm just trying to do a little calculation in my head, the sort of thing that you'd do if you were driving, Murray, and I see that Lola-Hart, with 12 laps to go, right, he seems to be going a lot more than 3 seconds a lap slower than Thackwell, who's the man catching him for the lead. Now, if it takes 40 seconds to change wheels in the pits, right, with 12 laps to go, that's just over 3 seconds a lap. He's got to be only worse off than Thackwell, otherwise it's better for him to change, and he obviously isn't working this out.
Well, there's Lola-Hart, and there is Thackwell behind him. So if our prophecy is right, and Mike Thackwell is in second place, he's about to take first, or is Lola-Hart certainly not giving in? Through and past goes Mike Thackwell, through the chicane. And so the New Zealander is now ahead of Lola-Hart on the road. Is he ahead in the race as we come into lap 37?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know we had some news from the pits that Lola-Hart planned to stay out, which presumably it came from his team manager or whoever's down there in the pits. who obviously wasn't blessed with the ability to do simple arithmetic, because simple arithmetic would tell you to get him out to race.
Well, we have official confirmation now that that is the situation, because the scoreboard has scored up with us, and it has Mike Thackwell in second position. We've just seen Thackwell pass. There he is. We've seen Thackwell pass Jörg Lienhardt, and now on lap 37. So there is the New Zealand driver who, having moved ahead of the Swiss man who held the lead, and hats off to him from lap 8 when he went ahead of Richard Dallas right through to lap 36. He can say, I have led the best in Formula 2 in 1980, as Mike Thackwell roars on his, screams on his way is a better way to describe it, because that V6 Honda engine makes the most distinctive and exciting noise, and we're looking at Thackwell coming into Woodcote. The engine sounding absolutely superb. Thackwell on dry tyres leads, Lienhardt on wet tyres in second, Paletti on dry tyres is third, Boutsen on dry tyres is fourth, Mallock on dry tyres is fifth, and Robinson, I guess, must be on dry tyres and is in sixth position. The man who was in one dry race caught up with the wet race, if you follow me, and indeed those dramatic developments have come to pass, with Mike Thackwell now on lap 38 ahead of Lienhardt, the race leader for so long, and it won't be very long, I suspect, before Riccardo Paletti, in third position at the moment, the 21-year-old Italian who has done no less than 2,000 miles of testing during the winter to get himself ready for Formula 2 this summer, gets past Lienhardt and takes second position. But there is Paletti, there's the Italian, and he has passed Lienhardt. That's another very wealthy young man, like Lienhardt. Paletti is spending his money very sensibly, in my opinion, by going motor racing in the best possible way, fitting himself out with some excellent equipment in the form of the March 812 with the four-cylinder BMW engine, punching out some 300 horsepower. And he had a pretty undistinguished Formula 3 career at the beginning of last year, but finished strongly in a Formula 2 race at Monza, finished in third place at the end of the year. So it may well have been that his equipment at the beginning of the year wasn't all that they might have been, and that he showed his true class later on.
In fact, I think that Paletti, this is his second or third chassis. In fact, only 4 or 5 weeks ago, I was digging him out the bank at Goodwood, where he had a quite horrific accident. And so he's driving very well. Also, he's on different tyres to the rest of them. He's on some American tyres called M&H, so I think they're also performing quite well.
Well, there is Paletti. He is on his 41st lap now out of 47. In second place, following Mike Thackwell, preceding Jörg Lienhardt. And Lienhardt's coming into the pits. Lienhardt is finally giving it best, and I presume for a tyre change, but he must be very worried with only 6 laps to go if he feels he's got to make a tyre change at this stage. Is it tyres? Well, there's certainly no sign of the mechanics getting the... My goodness, they're not very well organised in that pit. No, it's fuel. Lienhardt has decided he's got to take fuel on. There's no sign of any activity around the tyres, loosening off wheel, changing the battery. Mike Thackwell is not only on his way to his first ever Formula 2 win after having had a very rough Formula 2 career last year, after having dominated Formula 3 in 1979 when he won the Grovewood #1 award, but he is actually the youngest Grand Prix driver in the history of the sport, because he took part, he can just say he took part, that's Paletti who is in second place. Mike Thackwell here can just say that he took part at the age of 19 in the Canadian Grand Prix last year in a Tyrrell. I say he can just say because those of you that follow motor racing will remember that there was a gigantic coming together between Alan Jones and Nelson Piquet immediately after the start, as a result of which Mike Thackwell had to give up his car to Jarier, who had been involved in the crash. But Mike Thackwell can honestly say I am the youngest driver ever to have taken part in a Grand Prix, which is something that will make him go into the history books. And there, after 43 laps, and they are on the closing stage. Well, he's about halfway around the 44th lap now. Thackwell, Paletti, so Lee's up into third position, but he's a lap adrift. He's been lapped by Thackwell, has Jeff Lees, who is in third position. But it's going to be a wonderful storming finish for Ron Tauranac's Ralt-Hondas. That's the all-conquering Ralt chassis designed by Ron Tauranak. There's Paletti in second place. And last year, Honda decided they were going to make a comeback to Formula 2 after having dominated it some years ago with Jack Brabham and Denny Hulme. And they produced this V6 engine, and there are the two Ralt-Hondas together. Jeff Lees coming up with Mike Thackwell and trying to unlap himself. I hope they don't do anything stupid and punt themselves out of the race, because that would not be at all popular with Ron. And I wonder if Thackwell realises that he's a lap ahead of Jeff Lees. It certainly doesn't look like it. The way Jeff Lees took him and then Thackwell took him back again. This is great racing stuff on lap 45 in this 47 lap race, and it looks as though each of them think they're in for a victory, whereas in fact Jeff Lees is well adrift, lap adrift.
I think Jeff Lees may realise he's a lap behind. I think Thackwell's got a bit overexcited because Jeff doesn't seem to be re-challenging very hard. He probably wonders what on earth Thackwell's doing, holding up his progress, but of course it may have occurred to him that Thackwell hasn't realised that he's got a lap advantage.
I can tell you now, no matter where Mike is in the field, it took me nearly 40 laps to get past him once at a place called Poe, so he's going to have quite a hard time, but he's going past now. I think Thackwell's engine has obviously lost its edge. No, Mike won't let him go.
This is great stuff, my goodness. The first and third cars, 19-year-old Mike Thackwell, who is actually leading the race, and his teammate Jeff Lees literally rubbing wheels with him there. Number 14, 30-year-old Jeff Lees, who comes from Nuneaton, and they're fighting every inch of the way round the circuit. Thackwell thinks that Lees is trying to take the lead from him. Lees thinks he's trying to unlap himself. What's going to happen as they come into Woodcote? Jeff Lees gets ahead.
Well, I don't know what Thackwell's doing, but if Thackwell makes a mistake, goes off the track, gives the race away, he might learn a lesson.
Into lap 46 out of 47. Really stirring stuff in the closing stages in the last 7 miles of the Formula 2 race here at Silverstone. The International Trophy finishing on a very, very high note indeed, with two teamsters really determined not to give any quarter to the other. Paletti in second position, metaphorically being sandwiched by these two, although of course he's behind on the circuit, both of them. And in fourth position, it is now Corrado, Fabi. There's the second place man, Paletti in second position. And while those two are battling in the front, let me remind you very quickly that Mike Thackwell, that we're looking at now, led from laps 1 to 5. Then D'Alest took over in the AGS for 2 laps. Then the Swiss driver, Jörg Lienhardt, made a name for himself, and we're looking at Kenny Atchison, I think, as Lienhardt, who led from laps 8 right the way through to 36, when Mike Thackwell, who is leading the race now and about to start his last lap, took over. And Jeff Lees, as you see, goes into the chicane ahead of Mike Thackwell. Now, if Mike Thackwell thinks that Lees has got ahead of him and taken the lead, this last lap is really going to be dynamic. And Lees has... Thackwell's got past again. Lees is going to retake it.
Silly idiot. He nearly got himself into trouble then.
If this had been my team last year, they'd have fired me for doing this.
Well, there's going to be...
This is a terrible... He is being quite spectacularly stupid, I'm afraid.
And it looks as though Jeff Lees has stalled his engine. Yes! Look at that. Keep away, he's saying. And meantime, Mike Thackwell, with a phenomenal avoidance, showing how incredible racing drivers' reflexes are, is on his way, on the last lap, in a really exciting climax to this Marlboro Daily Express Formula 2 International Trophy of 1981. and you're looking at a brilliant young man on the eve of his 20th year, winning the most important race of his career so far, and he has driven in all sorts of racing. He's going to win the Formula 2 race here on his last day of his 19th year. He's through to the chicane now and takes the checkered flag with a very, very rough engine indeed. Meantime, has Jeff Lees got going again, I wonder? Jeff Lees, there he is stuck on the circuit, and I just cannot imagine what is going through Jeff Lees' mind now. He must be absolutely beside himself, either with shame or fury, or perhaps both.
I think he'll be very angry with both himself and with his teammate, who, after all, had a slightly sick car, a comfortable, commanding lead, and might reasonably have had the manners to wave him through and let him get on with his race. And so, obviously, Jeff will be most angry with himself, because he was the one who obviously threw it away. But if I was him, I wouldn't be particularly amused with Mike Thackwell's performance, which of course is not to detract from a fine race by Mike Thackwell. He's done a very good job. I think what he did at the end was probably a combination of misunderstanding of the situation and inexperience. And obviously they've got a great future. The Honda engine has performed extremely well today. The Ralt cars have performed very well, and they look to be a very strong combination for the rest of the season.
Now then, the winner then, Mike Thackwell, after a very stirring drive all the way through the race. And in second place is Riccardo Paletti, Mike Thackwell in a Ralt-Honda, Paletti second in the March-BMW. And let us emphasize that these are very much provisional results which have to be confirmed officially. In third place will now be Corrado Fabi, having displaced Jeff Lees. In fourth position, Britain's Jim Crawford in the Toleman. In fifth position, Carlo Rossi in the Toleman-Hart. And in sixth place, and he kept going right to the end, Brian Robinson in a Chevron. And it has been quite a race here at Silverstone. One that certainly number 15, Mike Thackwell, will never forget.